So, how is your child doing in school or your grandchild? Should you look at an alternative? Our next guests will share some options for you and how different homeschooling is now. Let's check it out.
Building spirituality, family, health, and business. This is The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.
Good afternoon, Giant Builders. I am so glad that you're here. Don't forget, social media links are below. Please like and comment. So today's guests are Kristina and Herbert Avritt. Hi guys, how's it going?
It is going great. Thank you for having us today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. Well, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Thank you so much for that. We are co-founders of Vibrant Family Education, a company that helps families who are looking to increase their family communication and connection, and also to help them really find that great fit education for their child and for their family.
And that's the nice way to say it. Really what we do is we help parents work with their children in the education system. We really encourage parents to, if they can, take their children out of school and homeschool. And we help the parents go through that process and give them the courage and the support that they need. Or if they can't get their children out of school or they really enjoy it, then we help them teach them how to navigate that system. She was a teacher for 27 years, how to get involved. And so it's around education, but we use that as a basis for building the family unit back together into a stronger unit with communication and processes to help build the family unit stronger.
Great. So what brought about this passion to help parents with education?
So we didn't.
We
didn't do well. So now our youngest son,
I wasn't quite sure what that meant. Okay.
Yeah. So our youngest son doesn't talk to us. I was an entrepreneur. She was a teacher. After work, after school, we spent a lot of time building our businesses, and we tried to shelter our children from a lot of the stuff that we were doing. And so we didn't properly pass down our traditions. We thought we were really doing great. We had a great relationship with our son, but then as he got a little older, he hooked up with a young lady that from a different lifestyle and different values, and our family values seemed not as important to him, and so he drifted away, and things got tense, and now he doesn't really talk to us anymore. And so the real reason that we kind of got into this is we want other people not to have to go through what we did. And well, that's my version of it. Her version of it is she was a 27-year teacher.
My turn.
And
as the school years went on, I realized that I couldn't reach the kids and reach the families the way I used to through policy changes and curriculum changes. All of those things has happened within our public school system. And then that big thing that happened a few years ago that changed everything, that threw education into a big jumble. I realized that, I was really ready to step out of the classroom and be with the parents and help them make sure that the education was the greatest fit possible for their children. And along with that is that there are so many children right now who go to school and they're not comfortable, or they aren't excelling, or they aren't making it work for them. And it's like, that's not necessary anymore. When I was teaching right at the end there are so many online programs, there are so many curriculums, there are so many co-ops and groups and things like that can help a family be successful in education for that specific child. So I bring my years of experience to those families who really want to make that change and make sure that their child is keeping their confidence, loving learning, and then of course growing into successful adults.
And one other small aspect of that is kind of the way schools are pushing towards tests and to make the next goal is if a child misses something, if they just don't get a little core principle, then the teachers don't know how to go back and address that with necessarily one student at a time. So children get left behind and they do the best they can. Right now, if you go onto the National Education website, you'll find that less than half of graduating seniors can read at or above a 6th grade level. and less than half of adults in the United States read at or above a sixth grade level. So we need to address that. And, you know, her passion is reading. Teaching reading. So that's kind of where how we got into that as well.
So what are some signs that parents should be aware of that maybe their child should go a different path than public education?
That is a great question, because fortunately and unfortunately, right, it could be signs of other things, but all those times when your child doesn't want to get out of bed, your child is saying, oh my gosh, I'm bored in school, or oh my golly, I don't have any friends, or those days when they're kicking and screaming going, no, I just absolutely don't want to go to school, right? Or whenever they have a big shift in mood, right? They've loved school for a long time, and now all of a sudden their confidence drops. Like, oh, I'm not getting it. I'm not understanding what's going on in class. Those things that can be indicators of lots of different things, but it's definitely something to talk to the teacher, to talk to your child and say, hey, what's really going on here? Is it because you missed something and you're not able to catch up anymore? Is it because you're having relationship problems at school, bullying, etc.? Or is it not a great fit with the teacher you have this year? Because unfortunately, we know that when you have one teacher with 30 kids, sometimes those connections just really aren't made. So really, you know, when those big changes happen in your child's mood or their excitement about school, check into it.
Okay, so all right, let's go to the homeschool direction. So what are some myths about homeschooling?
Ah, we love this one. There are three main myths that we talk about all of the time. And the very, very first one is that if I take my child out of school and I homeschool them, they aren't going to be socialized properly. They are going to be the weird ones. And that is the one that so many families have to address every single day, because whenever they say, oh, my child is homeschooled, that's like the first question is like, oh, aren't you worried about their socialization? Aren't they going to miss out all the things that they need to do to be socialized? And with that, it's like, no, because if you are a homeschool parent that is really involved in your child's education, guess what? You're going to make sure they have those socialization opportunities. And many of our homeschooled kids now are the ones who are actually the ones who can step out and be confident, because they've had experiences with lots of different age levels and groups and adults and things like that. They step forward and they're like, oh, I'm so-and-so, and I know about this, and you're so-and-so. And they don't have that hesitancy that a lot of our other kids have right now.
Yeah, we've talked with quite a few people as well who they've homeschool, and they talk with their families who don't. And they're like, oh, but your kids are. And then they see their kids, and the kids can walk in and have a conversation with an adult. They can walk into a crowded room and fit in with all the age levels, because they're not told to sit down and be quiet all the time. Colleges right now are actively recruiting for homeschool children, because they don't need as much help through the school system. They seem more adapted to life in general. And so they have to spend less resources per child, and the child has a greater success rate through college. So that socialization aspect, it's now actually kind of backward. So these children have, again, with parents who are active, because there are parents who pull their kids out of school and then just do nothing because,
right.
But that's not the people that we work with, because they're not really trying. Okay. We work with parents who try. Yeah. And so while they're trying, you know, the activity, it just compounds, and it makes things so much better for the family.
Yeah, I've heard of different homeschooling like co-ops where groups of homeschool kids get together and like a parent takes turns teaching different subjects. That seems like that's a really great way of keeping that social.
That's one of the things that we help parents with, is navigate that. So there's unschooling, there's homeschooling, there's pods. You can like have pods for individual classes. You could have pods for like multiple classes, like mini schools that parents get together. So there are so very many options out there that it can be overwhelming for parents. And so that's one of the things that we do, is we help them figure out what's going to be best for their family and their situation. And so we make it very, very individualized for every family that we work with.
And that actually leads into the second myth that we like to bust a lot, is that I'm not qualified to be my child's teacher, or I'm not knowledgeable enough in math, or I hated math when I was in
terrible
school.
in school. How can I be a teacher? right? That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
So you did bad in school. So schools don't work for every child. And school didn't work for you the way it was supposed to. So why do you think it's going to work for your children better than it did for you when you've probably talked about your school experiences and how it didn't work for you? So your children are going to go into that school system with that modeling, with that kind of thought process, and school is less likely going to be working for them. And so when we look at that and take that back, there are so many online curriculums, there's so many pods that the parent doesn't have to be the teacher
for
they
everything.
They just have to be the person to say, okay, now it's time to do this. And there can be teachers, there can be online curriculum, there can be so many other tools that the parent isn't actually the one doing the teaching. And one of the amazing parts is, oh, I wasn't good at math. Now, as they're watching their children do math, there's this possibility that they catch that one thing that they missed, that one little core, and suddenly these things start clicking and math makes sense for them. They start watching their kid read, and there's that one little thing that clicks in, that base thing. And so again, we talk about how we're helping the children, but how it also filters up and increases the family value as well.
All right, what's the third myth?
The third one is that I don't have time. There is no way that with my busy schedule or me working full time or us working full time that we can homeschool. It just won't work. And the biggest thing about that is that you're not picking up public education and dropping it into your living room. Homeschooling, home education does not take the same amount of time as you would in a traditional school. If you think about it, whenever your child is at school for the 6-7 hours that they're there, their teacher is dealing with 30 plus kids lots of times, right? Unless you're super lucky. And then they're also dealing with recess and bathroom breaks and lunch and PE and music and this curriculum and that curriculum and this transition and that transition, all those different things that spreads out the day that takes up the full 6-7 hours that your child is there. If they are at home with you or with the teacher and they are quiet and focused, think about how quickly they can actually do that learning. And the biggest part about that is that also when they feel safe and secure, their defenses are down, their body is relaxed, and more filters into them. I had a family that I was working with. She was a 3rd grade student and she was not reading at grade level. And mom was completely concerned. And I understood those concerns because like 3rd grader should be reading so much stronger. Mom decided to pull her out, bring her home to home educate. And within 2 months, the young lady had relaxed, felt safe, was willing to try. And within 5 months, she was reading at grade level and excelling because she had the confidence, she had the support, and she had the safety of knowing that she wasn't going to be bullied or picked on or feeling uncomfortable because she couldn't read when the rest of the students could.
Yeah. And so really the academic portion of it, when they're really young, might be a little bit more hands-on with the parents.
Absolutely.
But as they start to age, the hands-on aspect of it is just minutes a day while the children are spending maybe a couple hours a day. We just recently had a person on our podcast who talked about how he loved being able to be done with schoolwork by noon. Sometimes by 11, he would be finished with all of his schoolwork, have lunch at 11, and then have the rest of the day to focus on the things that he wanted. So his drawing, his music, the sports that they wanted to do. So you can take that academics and condense it. It can be in the morning. It can be in the evening when you're home from work.
If you're working.
And then the rest of the time, you have someone to help you around the house. You have,
life skills
being learned.
So they are those confident kids.
And we teach you how to talk about money and chores and how to do things around the house. So it's not like you're on your own and just trying to figure this out. There's so many tools out there and it's overwhelming at times. So we just help bring it down to small steps one at a time to help you make it into it.
That's great. Okay, so I have to just put a plug in here. So Giant Builders, if you didn't see last week's episode, she shared how to incorporate play into work and how to get your kids to do things with play. So that's a good help. All right, question. What about like extracurricular things like band, orchestra, sports? Are we like eliminating those things?
And that's where the socialization expands really well. So
and most school districts in the United States have either a law or a policy that homeschool children can come into those things after school. So your child isn't really missing out, right? But also along with that, because the homeschool groups have had such a big push lately, there are homeschool bands, homeschool orchestra, homeschool sports. You can go to the religious side. All the Christian schools have like their sports teams and things like that. All those leagues that are out there now that aren't necessarily affiliated with the school, those opportunities are still there for you and your child. And the best part about it is that when you're in charge of the schedule, you can make it usually so it fits the time frame that works best for your child. And an example of that is if your child's on the shy side and they don't want to be in that big group for a while, then you go early in the morning when those lessons are available and you do it in a quieter setting so your child is more comfortable. And then if you have that extroverted child that really likes all the hustle and bustle and everything, you take them in the evening when there's more kids around and things like that. But again, it's one of those beautiful things that extracurriculars is just an addition to the academics and really make sure that the child is learning and playing and having fun and doing everything in a space where they're comfortable and able, and then they can explore even farther.
And one of the best parts about that is especially with like medical fragile children who get sensory stimulation and any sort of like classroom commotion messes them up. When they get into like a music class or a dance class outside of school, they're working with people of lots of different ages, because outside of that, they're not usually just, oh, it's just the sixth graders, it's just the seventh graders. No, this is dance class. So they get to see the older kids do it. They get to help the younger kids, and they're working in cooperation. So many times when you have music class at school, I remember music class at school, bunch of kids playing around, making weird noises, not wanting to be there, no ear. But now these kids get into a cooperative class. They get into the music class where everybody is there because they want to be, and they are cooperative, and there's different age groups, and that changes the way their mind works, and they fit in so much easier. So the cooperative way of socializing outside of the school, more competitive like, is also really, really helpful for a lot of the medically fragile and shy children, because it gives them more confidence in life.
Great. All right. So, like, when can parents get started with taking charge of their child's education?
That's one of our favorite questions as well. It's like, well, when can we? Do we have to wait till the next school year? Do we have to wait till a break? Do we have to wait to? And the answer is no. Actually, you've already started home educating your child the moment you brought them home from the hospital or from wherever they came, the adoption agency, whatever, right? As soon as you brought them home, you became their teacher, whether you like it or not. And you know you have, because they follow you and model you and everything like that. But yeah, so the serious answer is any time is appropriate for homeschooling whenever you and your child and family are ready to take that step. Some parents do like to finish up the school year. But again, if we go back to those teachers who aren't maybe a great fit, then take them out in the middle of school year. Don't make them push through that unsuccessful journey and ruin their confidence and ruin their love of learning. Do it sooner than later. And even though you're not ready, guess what? You need about 2 months to what we call D-school, where you take all the school programming and all the school scheduling and all those things that push in on you, and you relax out of that, and then you step into your homeschool actual scheduling and routines.
Okay. So do you find that COVID increased an interest in homeschooling?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
There are so many parents who had no idea what was going on in school and what their children were learning. And I'm going to be a little controversial. Some of the curriculum for conservative parents was very much outside of their comfort zone. And so there was a lot of people that was like, they're really teaching this to our kids. And that gave them the impetus. Is like, we need to educate our kids, not
feed them a whole bunch
feed
of
them
stuff.
propaganda or socialize aspect. Is like, no, school is about reading, writing, and arithmetic and education, and teaching them how to learn. And that's the important thing, is teaching them how to learn. And what parents were realizing is there wasn't much learning going on. There was teaching to a test, there was cramming information, and as soon as it was done, the kids didn't remember any of it. So a lot of parents is like, what, my kids aren't being educated, how do we fix this? And unfortunately, within the system, it takes years and generations and decades to really affect the system. So one of the few freedoms that American people have left that they don't have to ask for permission for, they don't have to get anything from the government for, at any point you want, you can take your child out of school. Some states have reporting requirements where you do have to inform them. Some states you just don't. You can just yank them out anytime you want. And so the freedom of parents to be able to educate their children as they see fit is one of the last few unrestricted freedoms that Americans have. And they are trying to take that away from people at times.
They're trying to add more regulations in. The other side of that coin is that there are parents who are thrown into this and they're like, oh my gosh, I would never want to homeschool because that was a mess, right? Kind of thing. What I want to caution about is to think about this. You were thrown into it unexpectedly. The teachers were thrown into it, during COVID, unexpectedly. If you really go back and think about it and plan out, it will be a different scenario and a different picture. So if you're afraid to do it because of COVID, like I said, the
homeschooling
other side
is not having your kids sitting in front of a computer for 6 hours instead of sitting in a classroom. That is not what we do. That is not, a couple hours a day.
But don't be afraid to give it another shot if you're even thinking about it.
So what do you think is one of the weaker points of public school?
Most of it comes around the administration and the top down, unfortunately, because living that life as a 27-year teacher, I saw all of those changes, the policy changes, the curriculum changes. I went from being able to develop and do what was best for my students in the classroom to being told you have to be on page 6 of chapter 2 on this day. I'm like, no, my kids aren't ready for that yet. Well, that's where you have to be because the test is in a week, kind of thing, right? And so those teachers who are the biggest hearted, wanting the best for their students, sometimes they're pushed into areas where they don't have any choice because of those kinds of things. If our parents can go back and get involved again, because unfortunately with COVID again, many of our parents were kicked out of the classroom. They're like, oh, well, we can't have extra people in the classroom. And then when they tried to come back, especially in our area, there were major restrictions. Oh, now you have to be fingerprinted. Now you have to be this. Now you have to be this. And it became really hard for a parent. Granted, we want them safe, right? We want all of our kids safe, but they put in so many different layers. It was hard for parents to be there and be involved. So yeah, the biggest thing with public education is that they've just unfortunately gotten too much power. And the parents really need to dive in and stick up for their kids and be involved again.
I think one of the biggest problems is also the one size fits all. Mm-hmm. They put 30 kids in a classroom. They expect them all to sit down and behave. There are so many different personality types. There are so many different learning styles. There are, biological differences between boys and girls. Boys are learn much more actively and hands-on and rough and tumble. And girls are much more actually geared for the way academics are set up. So boys are right now are at a serious disadvantage. And as soon as their tendencies to activity into moving into, then a lot of times they're put on drugs, which is again another really good reason.
Medications are appropriate.
Politically correct here.
So many children are just by being normally active are put on Ritalin or Adderall or so many of these other different things that if they worked, there wouldn't be so many people on them. They would be able to get off of them. So, that's another really good reason if the school systems are actively trying to get your child diagnosed and put on medications, that might be a sign. It's like, hey, let's get our kid out because that's not a good fit. So if your school says, hey, your kid needs to be medicated to go to school, big red flag.
Yeah. Wow, this really opened up my mind to a lot of different things. I'm somewhat glad that all my kids are grown, but I am concerned because I do have grandkids now. in the school system. So this is really very eye-opening as to
Grandparents,
why.
grandparents who aren't necessarily working are great teachers.
There
Parents who are, so if
you
both
go.
of your kids are working and your
Mhm.
grandkids are at school and you have the time, again, it's not like you're the teacher. It's basically, hey, it's time to do this, it's time to do this, and then you get to have your grandkids at home playing with you throughout the day.
Yeah.
I mean, again, there's so many ways to come at it, so many ways to
Yeah.
look at it. There's so many people, and every person can come at it their own very special way. So it doesn't have to be the parents. It could be an older sibling who is old enough to stay home and babysit. It could be an aunt and uncle,
Yeah.
So there's so many ways to do this and so many opportunities. So just open up your mind, and if you want it,
Go for
it can
it.
make it. We can help you get it happening.
All right. Well, I will have your contact information below, so Giant Builders, so you have an easy access on how to reach them. So any closing thoughts?
I think the biggest thing is that parents lots of times will think that, oh, I wasn't a trained teacher, so I need to hand over the education of my child to those who were trained. And the thing I want to say there is, you are a parent, you are the person who knows that child best. Follow those gut instincts. If something doesn't seem right or something isn't a great fit, do the research, check into it, and follow your gut and do what's best for you, your child, and your family.
And as easy it is to take kids out of school, it's also easy to put them back in. So if you really think you can do it, give it a shot. Sometimes kids don't like it. Sometimes kids love it. Sometimes kids want to go back to school. So if you go into homeschooling and it's not working, you can step out, you can go back in, you can find alternatives. And just knowing what's out there will give the parents more confidence, more tools, more security, and just knowing, hey, I can do this. And this is out there. So just knowing it's out there opens up the world.
Oh, great. All right. Well, thank you so much for all of that information. Giant Builders, this might be one you want to listen to a second time, just so that you don't miss any of the top points there. Guys, so thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing your experience and also just enlightening us on different options and paying attention to our children's education.
You are very welcome, and we appreciated being here. Thank
And,
you.
and I would like to say just one more thing is the biggest indicator in your child's success in education is your involvement, your genuine involvement. So if they are going to school, get involved with the school, not just when they're kids. If you're at home, the more you're involved in the education system, in the education of your children, the higher likelihood of success that they're going to have. So whatever you're going to do, just be there for your kids.
Oh, amen. Got that one. All right. All right, Giant Builders, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Giant Builders with Lois Wyant.